Welcome back to the Coast Watch. This is the round 10 A-League men's predictions video / live stream coming to you live here on a Thursday afternoon to preview the upcoming games for this round. And we're having 3 games at the moment. I say at the moment because obviously anything can happen, but 3 games are going ahead this weekend, which is very exciting because in previous weekends, I think we've had 2 games, 1 game the week before that. It's been crazy. And of course, it's good to see some of you guys in the live chat. How's it going? Barry's in here, and would love to get your thoughts on some of the games that we're going to be walking through in this preview, in this predictions video, and going to be bringing up some graphics in a sec to break down some of the games. Already we've got Costa in the chat saying I reckon Adelaide United will beat Melbourne City. Dude, I mean, it's one of the games where, I mean, obviously we've seen these 2 teams play before, and I'm really fascinated to watch this one because Melbourne City have sort of been one of the talking points where they haven't necessarily been as dominant as they were last season. So we're going to talk about that game in depth in just a second. But look, I've got the Mariners gear on because, of course, this weekend it is Derby weekend. It is F3 Derby weekend. And, dude, we are so excited for it. Mariners, of course, defeated the Jets back in round 1 up there in Newcastle. Mariners at home. Can't wait for it. So let's jump into some of the previews right now and look at some of the stats heading into these games as well. Because there's some interesting things. And first of all, we're looking here at Mariners v Jets coming up this weekend, of course, Saturday the 15th of Jan. That's a 5:05 p.m. kickoff. All these times that will be listed are Australian Eastern Daylight Time at Central Coast Stadium. And first of all, the big one that we want to point out is that now it is level. The stats are level after the round 1 game. So Mariners 18 wins, Jets 18 wins, 18 draws. So it's as even as it gets. And even when it comes to the goals as well. 65 goals scored each. It's incredible. It's incredible after this derby, which has been going on for since the inception of the A-League back in 2005. It is as close as it gets. It's the closest rivalry in Australian football at the moment, and it's so hard to split. And as they say with derbies, regardless of where these teams are, it's always a competitive game, and it's anyone can win, regardless of whether Mariners are sitting bottom of the table or it doesn't matter. So I've got some score predictions I can see coming in here in the chat. And of course, drop your score predictions for these games as we see them come up. We've got Furious George in the chat, says 4-1 to the Mariners. Krasdog says Jets will win. And some of the points that I wanted to highlight here. So, of course, Mariners have won that round 1 F3 Derby 2-1. Of course, Josh Nisbet grabbing his first goal for the Mariners and Jacob Farrell scoring on his A-League debut. It was Valentin Ayul who grabbed the goal back for the Jets in that one. So it'll be interesting to see, of course, Jets looking for a little bit of revenge after that opening weekend result. This is interesting. Both teams' first A-League game in 4 weeks. It's been a long time, of course. A little bit less since the Mariners played their last game. They did play in the FFA Cup against Leichhardt. But the Mariners' last A-League game, that 2-0 win at home to Wanderers. And for Jets, it was that 2-1 loss away to Macarthur FC. Got some more predictions here in the chat. Costa says 2-1 to the Mariners. Barry says I'm back in the Mariners 4-0. Dude, I'd love a big win. Football States in the chat. How's it going? Says this will be a good game. William is in the chat and says 2-2. Jets did. This is an important point to raise that we should talk about. Jets have won. You can see the third point there in the bubble. Jets won the last F3 Derby at Gosford 2-0. So Jets are going into this game with that little bit of confidence, knowing that, especially when you look back at last season, it was such a positive season for the Mariners, and Newcastle struggled big time last year. They were locked into that bottom 2 position for pretty much the whole second half of last year. But towards the end of this season, and it's a game that sort of gets forgotten a bit because Mariners had such a good year last year, Jets actually rocked up and played well, defended really well that game. And I remember it as a Mariners fan, it was such a frustrating game from a Mariners fan point of view because Jets they grabbed the goals on the counter-attack in the first half, were able to sit back, ended up winning 2-0 in that game. And the key battle for me in this game, I've highlighted these 2 players who are in-form players for their clubs at the moment. You can see here, I've highlighted Harry Steele for the Central Coast Mariners and Daniel Pena. Now, A-League fans in general are now familiar with Daniel Pena, who is this young Brazilian midfielder who's come into the league and has already shown us what he can do. He's settled in so quickly. Thinking back to that FFA Cup qualifier where he scored that banging free kick down in Geelong against Western United. And every game he's looked good. He's been lively every single game. He hasn't had a quiet game yet. His movement his ability to pop up at anywhere at any moment. You see him dropping back deep at times, as does his sort of strike partner, Becca Micheldatzi. Daniel Pena is the key for the Jets in attack. And obviously they have looked good in attack so far this season, scoring 4 goals against Newcastle Jets not too long ago. But he's coming up against Harry Still, who's one of these young players who have just stepped up so well at the Central Coast. Harry Still is currently keeping Max Ballard out of the team. Max Ballard was meant to be sort of the replacement for Gianni Stensness. Harry Still's already come in a few rounds into the season and replaced him. So, and as well, when you look at the 2 midfielders for the Mariners, of course, Mariners playing with that 4-4-2 formation, the 2 central midfielders. Harry Still is the one who generally sits back a little bit more compared to Oli Bozanic. You'll see them, they do sort of, they've got great sort of chemistry in midfield, those 2 central midfielders, whoever it is playing for the Mariners. But you will see Harry Still dropping that little bit deeper, so expect him to have some duels with Daniel Pena. And Pena, knowing how lively he is, how active he is, if Mariners are going to keep the Jets' attack quiet in this game, it's going to be off the back of Harry Still's defensive work to shut down Daniel Pena. We've got some more predictions here in the chat. Football State says 3-2 to Newey. And look, this segues nicely into my score prediction. I've actually put down Mariners 3, Newcastle 1. Then look, and I'm trying not to be too biased, of course. Got the Mariners shirt on here, as you can see. I'm trying not to be too biased, but Mariners off the back of some great form. Unfortunately, the break with the COVID cases didn't come at a good time. Mariners 3 consecutive wins. Not only 3 consecutive wins, but 3 consecutive clean sheets. 2-0 to Sydney, 2-0 to Wanderers, 6-0 to Apia Leichhardt. Defense has been an absolute standout. Kai Rolls, Dan Hall, that partnership is looking really solid at the moment. Does Ruan Tongic get shifted back into this lineup? I'm not sure. I think they should stick with Dan Hall at the back there alongside Kai Rolls. And it'll be interesting as well. Nikolai Muller, does he get shifted into the starting lineup? I would probably say no. Stick with Maresh and Arena up top. Utilize Muller off the bench. Bring him on, after an hour. And if we are chasing the game, if we do need something different, because Nikolai Muller can bring that. He is a good, experienced player. But my score prediction, 3-1. And look, I think it will be high scoring. I was even thinking maybe 3-2 win to the Mariners. And the reason why I do say it's high scoring is, both teams have been off for so long, and we can simply look back at the Melbourne City Wanderers game from last round. Both of those teams hadn't played in a long time. City had just played in the Cup a few days before, but it was Wanderers' first game for a number of weeks. 3-3. It was just goals galore. Defense wasn't really on top in that game between City and Wanderers. I'm not saying that the Mariners' defense are going to fall apart, because I'm so confident in our defense at the moment. When you look at the Jets, their only weakness at the moment is their defense. While they are currently the highest scoring team of the competition, they are unfortunately conceding goals. So they need to tighten things up at the back. So look, I think the Jets will get on the score sheet in this game. They've got too much talent in the attack. If Becca Micheldatzi is lively in this game, they will get on the score sheet. But I'm backing the Mariners for a home win. How about that? As Furious George in the chat says, Steele is on form. Football State says Pena is class. 2 fantastic players. So yeah, really excited to watch that duel. Hey, let's jump on to the next game right now. And all these games taking place on Saturday night. And we're going to be talking about now Adelaide taking on Melbourne City at Cooper Stadium. Saturday night, 7:45 p.m. kickoff. This is an exciting game, man. Of course, both of these teams faced each other in round 2. And of course, in that game, ending 2-2. That entertaining clash, of course, Melbourne City taking the lead. That fantastic outside of the boot strike from Andrew Naboot. And then Reds coming back from 2 goals down late on. They're so good at doing that in Adelaide United, coming back from deficits to grab a result, especially at home. Interesting stat here, you can see the second point. City haven't won in Adelaide since 2018. Now, that is a pretty surprising result considering City's dominance in recent years. It's a place where they haven't had the most success. So the Reds will be heading into this game knowing that they're able to take on this City side. And even when they faced, when Adelaide hosted City last season, they even defeated them at home. So Adelaide have a decent record against City heading into this one at home. At home, it should be said. Big point to point out here: Rez will be without SIS, who of course is suspended. Picked up a red card at the end of that Melbourne victory game. Now, a little bit of question marks. I did see something online, and I don't know whether you guys on the live chat can back me up with this. I did see something online that maybe Adelaide were going to be appealing this. Apparently, the red card was for something SIS said to the referee, which may have been misheard. whether Adelaide are appealing this. We haven't seen anything as of yet. It is currently Thursday, 2 days before the game. So haven't seen anything yet. You guys in the chat says, Football State says, yeah, never easy to get a win at Coopers. Or Football State also says, Adelaide getting some form back, and City looked a bit shaky against Western Sydney Wanderers. So this one is also an interesting one. Yeah, and that's why I'm really fascinated to see how it's going to go. My key battle in this game, one day. Berenguer. And I've specifically highlighted one day who's been getting regular minutes now ahead of Louis Dorigo in defensive midfield for Adelaide United. And he's going to be even more highlighted in this game, knowing that he's without his usual Spanish defensive midfield partner in Isaias. One day is going to be anchoring that midfield and has a lot of pressure on him to handle this City midfield. We know how good Melbourne City's midfield is. I've highlighted Florent Berenguer there, but you could also you could also add into that Aidan O'Neill. You could add into that Connor Metcalf. Even Marco Tilio came off the bench into sort of almost like a false nine position. One day, similar to Harry Steele that I highlighted for the Mariners, one day is going to be so key to blocking out these City attacks from midfield and stopping their creativity from the likes of Metcalf and Florent Berenguer. And yeah, my score prediction, 1-1. I'm going for 1-1. I'm going to say another draw. Could be another 2-2, but I'm just going to go for the 1-1. Kraz Dogs in the chat says, I'm back in Adelaide 2-1. Costa asks a good question here in the chat, though. Is Mork still with United? So for those that don't know, Stefan Mork, club captain, has been linked with pretty strong rumours to a move away from Adelaide United. Apparently, a Japanese club is interested. Of course, we know Ben Halloran has officially left. He is gone. But Stefan Mork, is he still there? As far as we know, yes. There has not been any official word that he's left. And Stefan Mork was involved in the game last weekend against Victory. But of course, as Costa mentions earlier in the chat there, Brooks is back at Adelaide United. Lachlan Brooks, a young attacking player who was involved in the club previously. He is back, so potentially we will see him involved in this game as well. Costa brings up the point here. Another key battle could be Nabut against Carvalho. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Andrew Nabut has been in fantastic form, and Josh Carvalho, pretty sure Carvalho came off injured at the end of the Victory game, so whether he'll be right for this one, haven't heard any injury news on Josh Carvalho. So, but yeah, good to point out that one as well. And as well, the last thing that I want to touch on in this game is that Matt Leckie. Coming off the back of last week, I was very critical of Matt Leckie, who entered the A-League competition, returned to the A-League competition, I should say, with big expectation on his shoulders. Has he delivered? What do you guys think? Has he delivered? He hasn't delivered at all. He's been underperforming. He's looked low on confidence. And he's sticking out like a sore thumb a little bit now at Melbourne City because they've got such good quality. You know, Andrew Nabut has made a pretty good start to the season. Jamie McLaren, relatively quiet by his standards. The midfield, in my opinion, is still operating well, as we expect them to. Connor Metcalf, Florent Berenguer, Aidan O'Neill. That midfield three is so consistent and got such good A-League quality amongst those three players. Matt Leckie's not matching it. And especially when you look at the guy who's on the sidelines ready to replace him, Marco Tilio. Look at last weekend. Tilio comes off the bench, scores a cracking goal within 5 minutes of coming on to rescue the game for his side. Well, to put his side in lead, actually, at that point in the game. But it went on to secure his team a point. Football States in the live chat and says Matt Leckie has been so bad so far. I'm honestly shocked. And that's the thing. I mean, the guy's a current Socceroo. You expect him to step up, and a lot of people talking about him, tearing up the A-League, coming back and potentially a Johnny Warren medal contender. He has not started the season anywhere near that at all. He's the furthest thing from Johnny Warren medal contention at all. Now, don't get me wrong. Love Matt Leckie, and as a Socceroos fan, want to see him succeed. And he can. He probably can turn things around. Maybe it's just going to take him some more time to get used to this setup that Melbourne City are running. But look, if I was Patrick Kisnorbo heading into this game, I would bench Matt Leckie and start Marco Tilio. Start Tilio on the wing so that your front three would be McLaren up the front, Nabut on the right, Tilio on the left. That's a dangerous front three. Give Leckie a run off the bench. And of course, Matt Leckie returning to Cooper Stadium once again. Hey, let's jump into the final game. Let's do it right now. And of course, only 3 games going ahead this weekend. And the last one, Sydney FC taking on Brisbane Roar. And of course, both teams faced off recently in the FFA Cup, where Sydney FC won 1-0. We did a live watch along for that one yesterday, and it was a pretty good game overall, actually. It was good to see Brisbane back in action after a long time off. But for Brisbane specifically, you could tell they were quite sloppy in the final third. For much of the game in midfield, they were competitive and they were taking the game to Sydney FC. Went to halftime with the scores 0-0 and were creating some good chances at the end, but just sloppy, just lack of quality in attack. And that's the concern for Brisbane Roar, and it might cost them in this game and many games to come. Sydney FC are, interestingly enough, undefeated in their last 7 meetings with Brisbane. So Sydney, the Sky Blues, going in with a good run of form into this game. Brisbane's first A-League game in over a month. That's is what I think contributed to their sloppiness in attack in the FA Cup game. They're just a little bit off the mark. No competitive action for a little bit. But honestly, it's going to be good. They'll be able to watch back this Sydney game because, of course, they're facing the same team a few days later. Learn from their mistakes. They're going to be coming up against the same side once again. And it'll be interesting to see whether they tweak anything tactically. So, yeah. But drop your predictions down here for this one. We've got Krasdog in the chat. Says Sydney FC 3-0. Football State, who is a Sydney FC fan, says we should be winning this one convincingly. Not the same way we won yesterday. Yeah, Sydney FC they were a little bit off the mark too. Sydney FC weren't at their best yesterday as well. Of course, we should touch on Sydney FC's previous results. Have turned things around a little bit in the A-League. 2-1 against Wellington at home. 3-0 away to Macarthur. That was a great performance and a great result. My key battle in this game, Jay O'Shea and Paolo Retre. Now, Jay O'Shea was involved in a lot of things for Brisbane, and that was predominantly because he was shifted into a more advanced role than we usually see him playing. Jay O'Shea was almost playing he was basically playing as a number 10 alongside Juan Lezcano. And it meant that he was much more involved in attack. He wasn't necessarily doing as much defensive work, which I think is good to give him more freedom and to be creative in the final third. But for whatever reason, it wasn't clicking. I'm not sure. I'm going to be curious to see whether they maybe shift him back to more of a deep-lying playmaker role. Maybe he suits that sort of position a bit more and maybe get someone with a bit more agility and speed in that sort of attacking midfield role, or potentially play with 2 strikers. Maybe shift Jay O'Shea back to defensive midfield. Maybe play Cyrus Demi up alongside Lezcano just to provide a little bit more pace. Paolo Retre has been so key at defensive midfield for Sydney FC. He's looked really good, filling the void left by Luke Bratton. And of course, Mustafa Amini. Does he make an appearance in this game? We saw him training. He was involved training before the FA Cup game for Sydney FC. But my score prediction for this one, 2-0 to Sydney FC. Barry's in the chat, says 1-1. Adrian also agrees with a 2-0 to Sydney FC. Costa's in the chat, says if Jay O'Shea can put the ball in the box, I reckon it'll be 2-1. But if you can't, then 2-0. Football State says Lezcano has been terrible so far. Lezcano, he's gotten limited minutes, so we have to give that to him. And he actually showed decent glimpses here and there. There were a couple opportunities where he was getting really physical. It's not like he was just sitting up top, not really doing anything. There were times where he was actually trying to get involved. I think specifically to that first half where he had a great opportunity just to play an easy pass along the floor and he just lobbed it up and it went straight to Redmayne. Just little things like that. So, and it's not just him, it's the other Brisbane attackers who, same thing with Nikolai Miluznich, Alex Parsons, they're not quite, the confidence isn't there for them. So that's going to cost Brisbane in this game. Sydney should win convincingly. Yeah. Football State says Retre saved us from that equaliser at the death yesterday. Yeah, look, and Brisbane came close. They were pushing at the end. Sydney FC just getting away with it, but I think it should be more convincing in this one. Football State also asks, what did you think of Olsen so far? Yeah, he was very average, wasn't he? Again, same thing with those attackers. Olsen was playing at left back and a number of crosses going wayward. So, again, it is early in the season and there is plenty of time for these teams to turn around. This will be, even though this is technically round 10, this is Brisbane's 5th A-League game of the season, remarkably. It's incredible. So, of course, plenty of games to be caught up in the upcoming weeks. But, guys, thanks so much for tuning into this little live round preview. Let me know if you think I should be doing this more. It's good to get you guys involved in the live chat and get your opinions, get your live reactions on this. And because, yeah, I'm definitely keen to do more of these live predictions videos. Of course, this will be up for replay for anyone who would like to watch on replay to prepare for the upcoming weekend of A-League football. We are so keen And oh my goodness, I cannot wait for the F3 Derby, dude. On Saturday, back in action, the Mariners. So keep an eye out for my for the match reaction video that'll be coming out this weekend for the F3 Derby. Fingers crossed for a Central Coast Mariners win. And of course, I do just want to mention before signing off that there are a few games happening next Wednesday during midweek, but of course we will touch on them once we get around to next week. Have a fantastic weekend, guys. If you have enjoyed this video, feel free to leave it a like. It does help me out so much. And subscribe if you're not already, if you want to stick around to all of the daily content coming here at Coast Watch Football.